in this question, so they're asking this question here in section 9.1. So when you're in 9.1, they don't expect you to know how to do this the fast way. So let me show you how to do it the long way, and then I'll show you how to do it the fast way. All right, so the long way is we create a table here of x and y values, and then we choose some arbitrary values of x and find out what y has to be. Now I'm going to be smart here. I generally tell students to use 0, 1, and negative 1. Now if I do that here, when I put 1 in here for x, I'm going to get 3 halves times 1 is 3 halves plus 4. It's going to create a fraction. So the smart thing to do is instead of doing negative 1 and 1, do 2. Pick the denominator of the fraction and use that number for x. So again, you can pick any values of x that you want, but there are sometimes some smart choices. So if x is 0, then that means y has to be 3 halves times 0 plus 4, and that's just 4, because that is 0. Now we put in 2, we get 3 halves times 2 plus 4. With 3 halves times 2, the 2's cancel, and we have 3 plus 4 is 7. And then we put in negative 2, we get 3 halves times negative 2. The 2's cancel, and we get a negative, we take that, it's like a negative 1 times the 3, so that's negative 3 plus 4, and that's equal to 1. And then you come over here and you graph. You can pick 0, 4 as your first point, and then 2, 7 as your second point, and I'll show you how to graph in a second. And then draw your line, and what you'll find, you can then go check. When x is negative 2, am I at 1? And it's kind of hard to tell here, but you're roughly about at 1 right there. So the third point can just be used to check your work. Now the faster way to do it is to recognize, now that you've completed some of section 9.3 and 9.5, this number right here is the y-intercept. All right, and this number right here is the slope. And that's why we call this the slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. This number is the slope, and that's the y-intercept. And so you can just look at those coefficients, and it tells you exactly what to do for this graph. And so you can come over here and say, all right, I'm going to put a point at 0, 4. Boom, put that point, because that 4 right there is the y-intercept, meaning 0, 4. And we found that down here, in fact. When you let x equal 0, you always get a y-intercept, because when x is 0, that means you are on the y-axis. So you come in, you plot a point here, and now slope tells us slope is change in y over change in x. And so some people refer to that as rise over run. So the top number tells you how much to go up, so we're going to go up 3, and then we're going to run or go over 2. So you go from this first point here at 0, 4, and I'm going to go up 3 and over 2. So I'll go up 1, 2, 3, and then over 1, 2. And I put my second point right there. And lo and behold, that's the point 2, 7, right? We go over 2, and now we're up 7 at that point. And that's how you draw your line. And that's the fast way to create it. You just look at those two numbers, and you plop a point down at 4, and then you rise 3 and run 2. And you don't even have to do any of this numerical calculation. So let's go do that over in MyMathLab. So I have my graph here, and so we're going to do the line tool, and we'll click at 0, 4. Now notice up here in the corner in this yellow, you can know exactly where you are. If you can't see this graph, I know it's hard to see sometimes, the lines and the grid is so small. But that number up there tells you where your current cursor is. So we need to be on 0, 4. So it says 0, 4. I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, and then over 2. And so there is my line. And that's the answer to that question. So it does want to know what that y-intercept is, and that y-intercept is 0, 4. It says in blue, type in ordered pair. So you use parentheses and you type in 0, 4. And so that's how you do one of those. Again, the intention in 9.1 is that you do it the manual way, but by the end of the chapter, you should understand there's a faster way without doing all that calculation. You just use the slope and the y-intercept.